Hi, I'm Heather McDougall, and I've just written a book called Songs for a Machine Age, which is coming out in November with Hadley Rill Books. And it being a small press, I'm wanting to beef up my PR, and so I'm beginning this Indiegogo campaign in an effort to raise $1,000 so that I can put at least 100 books into the book bags that they hand out to people at the World Fantasy Conference. The World Fantasy Conference is a very literary conference. It has lots of publishers and agents and other authors. And so it seems to me a really good place to start to try and get people talking about my book. So since I'm not very good at making people want to do what I want them to do because I'm so incredibly charismatic and so incredibly fabulously nice, what I'm going to do instead is rather than trying to convince you, is I'm going to read a section from the book. And you decide if you think it sounds like an interesting book. And if you do decide to contribute, you will get a copy of the book in one form or another. And if you contribute $100, you will receive a sculpture, a very small sculpture, from me. I have an MFA in sculpture, and I am a deep believer in the maker movement, and a lot of that is where this book came from. It's all about people making things. So if you hang on a second, I'll read you a little bit. This part is about the character's name is Fen, and he's got a knack, shall we say, for understanding how machines work. He understands the mechanics of things. He can kind of see into the mechanics of things. And in fact, he can kind of hear them like music. So that's why he is who he is. And he's being taken down into the labyrinth by the curator, who's one of the most famous people in the country. And there he meets the steam beast for the first time. Okay, let's go. The corridor was tall and wide and sinuously curved, with small arched chambers opening off it. Within these chambers, Fen glimpsed all manner of machines on floors and tables and shelves. Gleaming tools hung on walls and peeped from cabinets. The passage branched and branched again, and the curator seemed to stride down each turning at random. From the darkness, Fen could hear the whisperings of countless little devices, and it gave him a chill to hear their workings calling to him, but not to be able to see them. The curator said, "I've watched the Duke for years now, and I know how he works. If he does do what I think he's going to do and step outside the law, he'll take your friend away, and we won't get within a mile of her without her disappearing through some rabbit hole. From what I've heard, he's the kind of man who has secondary and tertiary versions of every plan." "So what do you recommend?" said Fen. The curator stopped in front of a doorway and guffawed. "That, my friend, is the wonderful part," he said, clapping Fen on the shoulder. "I've already been working on it. If we can get a device to snatch her, we can approach unseen, so to speak. The only question is, how do you get a device to snatch her and not some other person? I could use your help with that now that we have so little time." He gestured Fen through into a chamber larger than most, in which stood a strange contraption. Fen stopped in the archway and stared at it, a large round object about the size of a dog cart, standing in the middle of the room. On shelves all around lay an astounding array of mechanisms of all types, some of which he'd never seen before. The thing itself had several arm-like appendages and looked as if it had been halted midway, reaching into its own insides. "What's that?" asked Fen, fascinated. The device was astonishing, virtuoso, its unimaginable workings speaking to him in a deep voice, vibrating with life. It was different than anything he'd ever heard, more like the full-throated choral singing of celebrants in a grove than the small clicking voices of mindless mechanicals. "The steam beast," said the curator, glancing curiously at the thing. "I haven't yet actually seen it create anything or work on itself, but every time I come here, it's different. It's one of the great mysteries of the world, even to me." Fen stared at the thing, awestruck. Its looming form seemed strange, almost bizarre to him in its unfinished state, though he knew it appeared in many unfailingly beautiful forms at festivals. While Fen stood there studying it, something scuttered past his foot. "Deep dark," he muttered, skipping aside, but even as he skipped aside, he heard its tiny mechanical self, the meshing of gears singing their high communal greeting. The labyrinth, with its dry stone surfaces and pools of brilliant light, seemed an unlikely place for such wonders. The thing moved on into a fleck of light beyond the steam beast, and Fenn saw it, a small machine made of brass and vellum, a myriad whirring wing-like appendages, with myriad whirring wing-like appendages whose shadows danced across one another for a moment, and then it was gone. They're the steam beasts. The curator waved in the direction the little brass and vellum thing had vanished. He picked his way across the floor to where there were several more little machines, in different shapes and styles. They're all over the place. There are hundreds of them. They live down here with it, like children or pets. It seems the beast likes company, or practice, or both. He plucked one up and looked at it critically, while its gyro legs kicked. I think there are its eyes and ears moving around the city and spying for it. He went on past the great device, while Fenn tiptoed gingerly after him, staring back at the beast, whose glossy brass outsides held lines of copper and silver. The arms, strongly constructed of brass and other metals, were delicately jointed and masterfully engineered. He thought as he passed that he could see inside the thing through the door that hung open on its side, and was surprised to see a bunch of glittering activity like an ant's nest or beehive. A thrill washed over him at the coppery murmurs that emanated from and accompanied the beast's own symphonic workings. And that's as far as I'm going to read. So if that sounds interesting to you, please donate to my cause and I'll send you a book. Okay? Thank you. Take care.